We have another guest, part of the art series that we're doing for my podcaster Stephen Sully's Study and also Woodbury House Art Studio. I have, I want to pronounce your surname right, so it's John Matos, aka CRASH, street art legend. I got to know your work predominantly, like I said, through my business partner affiliate Michael, but also another artist that I interviewed some time ago, a guy called Christopher Ellis, or goes by the name of Days. Yeah. And I know you guys have shared a studio, or you've done some collaborations before. And where we're doing this street art series, different interviews and different content, I thought it just made complete sense to get you on board because of the affiliation that we've had with Days. And no doubt, eventually, we've got a new arm that has opened up for Woodbury House, which is called the Retail Arm, which is basically an e-commerce platform. And we definitely would like to work with you on some sort of capacity. So something we could talk about later on down the line, I guess. Sure. So anyway, thank you for your time and welcome on board on the podcast there, Crash.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. So I always like to start by talking about the artist background. I personally think and feel I'm not from an art background. I want to just say that straight away. And when I found myself coming into the street art sort of sector back in 2013-14, it was more the stories, the narrative that gripped me by the artist rather than the actual artwork. Don't get me wrong, after a while, when I started understanding their background, the narrative, where they come from, challenges, it made me more educated and therefore appreciated the artwork a lot more. Okay, I think sometimes people got a misconception about art. It's almost like they've got to like it straight away in order to appreciate it. I think that's completely wrong. I think you need to be educated on the artist and their background before you can really understand what goes into their work. But that's just me. So anyway, your background. Are you a New Yorker? Where are you from originally?
Born and raised in the Bronx, New York. I've been here almost my 60 years of living. Nice.
Okay, cool. And so, like, when I've done my own homework, the artist that we've got in the background there is Richard Hambleton, and that's predominantly who we represent. Like I said, we represent a few others, but it's mostly Richard Hambleton. And looking at his work and what some of the lurking shadow men stood for was, you know, the crime, the drugs, the gangs, the shootings, you know, back in New York, back in the late 70s and 80s. Was it as bad as some people said, Crash? Was it as controversial back then as the media made out?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, growing up in the South Bronx, things started, I guess, lack of a better phrase, falling apart late 60s. I was living in a tenement building in the South Bronx, and about 69, 68, 1969, there were fires that were occurring in the neighborhood. And, you know, a lot of the fires were basically owners of buildings who didn't want to deal with owning the building anymore. So they would have fires set so that the insurance company can come in and buy the buildings out, and the owners can be, you know, free and clear from them. So that's started in the late 60s. It really started taking full steam in the early 70s, and that's when gangs started rising, and so it was a little tricky.
Okay, and I know from, like, you know, music artists to fashion artists to street artists, and even if you go into other sectors, I mean, like, I like boxing. I've boxed. I've had 14, 15 fights now. And I know some of the best athletes, especially the best boxers, where they've come from deprived backgrounds or controversial backgrounds, it's really helped them. Would you say that, you know, back then, all the kind of uncertainty with New York, and especially places like the Bronx, how did it influence you and your work?
Oh, wow. Well, you know, it's funny because I used to do a lot of boxing also. I actually fought in the Golden Gloves.
No.
So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hats off to you.
You know, the whole scene, it inspires you in different ways. But for me, what it did, it opened my I guess my soul, because in these dire areas, you always have these bouquet of flowers that grow. You have flowers that come up, and you have great poets, musicians that come out of these areas. A lot of athletes. You need, sometimes you need dire circumstance that would fertilize the ground enough that these things come up and they rise.
Yeah.
And you have some great things that occur, and graffiti being one of them. The whole hip hop culture coming out of these areas. We're talking about people playing music and having parties on weekends, because they were, that was all they had, and that's where everything came from. And it's a beautiful thing when you think about it, how that occurred, and that inspired me to really just take what's there and just elevate it.
So I had recently, which was released not this week but last week, an interview with Cope 2. Fernando Carlo, I think his actual birth name is, and he said that one of his goals, and this was supported when I spoke to Outdeers actually, was to kind of corner a subway or a train line, and it was almost to dominate that. So like to get your tag or your piece up on there, and he said he done that on a few lines. What was it kind of like that, trying to make not trying to make yourself a celebrity, but kind of like make yourself known to the rest of the street art community that you're taking on this space?
Right. Well, I mean, the whole thing about graffiti is fame, getting your name up as much as possible so people recognize you. And so, it's all about fame. That's, bottom line, that's the grassroots of graffiti. Put your name up in as many places as possible, and let people recognize who you are. So it's that part of it is true. To me, also, it's a dual thing, because you want to be known, but sometimes you can be known by doing great pieces as opposed to many pieces. So like a lot of the graph guys, they would do lots of tags, lots of drops. I really concentrated more on doing complete pieces and colorful pieces. So I might not have done 300 cars, but I did 100 cars, and the 100 cars are a little more memorable than the 300.
Yeah.
So, but the essence of graffiti is fame. Getting to be known.
Yeah, and how would you say the whole genre has morphed, pivoted, evolved since the 1980s to where we are now, which is 2021?
Wow. The approach is the same, but the outcome is different. Where we had like 2 or 3 cans of paint, and we do a piece, and then we walk away. Our mission is complete. Whereas today, kids can print out an image on a piece of paper, cut out, make a stencil, and with 1 can, they could do 100 little pieces all over the city. So it in that sense, it's changed. The outcome is the same. I mean, you're putting your pieces out there. It's still one of these things that people have a misunderstanding about, because it's not just to do it. There's a reason to it. So that's always a challenge.
Yeah. What I've noticed, again, I've not been around since the late 70s, 80s, and was in New York and doing my thing over there. Yeah. So I don't have firsthand sort of experience exactly what it was like, but I'm getting common kind of thoughts and feelings, and also talks with multiple different street artists who've lived and breathed it back then, that things have evolved. Now, as you said, the outcome's the same. You want to express yourself, you want to become, let's say, noticed. Obviously, you want to monetize, and this brings me on to my point actually. I think you make yourself a brand and also a name, and then you can start licensing out your images, or even your own brand. And I see that with, let's say, music artists, you know, Jay-Z being one of them, you know, famously, he was a rapper, very successful one, but then he turned himself into a rapper stroke business person. And he's taken his brand and overlapped it in many different sectors. And now we're seeing that street artists, Futura, yourself, Days, even the Ramo Z, or even, I don't know, Keith Haring, or any one of these great, you know, archives or the estate or the IP, they're going into different things. They're going into clothing, they're going to merchandise, they're going into all different kinds of things. Is that now a big factor to any street artist, you know, thinking about other avenues to monetize your work or to become more creative?
Well, you know, it's funny. We were doing T-shirts back in the early '80s, where like Keith did it. It wasn't a question of doing T-shirts to sell money, to sell them to make money. It was the idea that if you go to a club and someone wearing a T-shirt, like, oh, yo, that's cool, you know, that type of thing. So it lends itself back to going back to doing tags on the street and doing pieces so people recognize you. So it wasn't like, oh, let's do a bunch of T-shirts and sell them and make money. You know, that wasn't something that we looked, you know, towards. It was just something that we did. And then I want to say very early in the '80s, people started realizing that you could do something more with it. And it was trying to make an extension of what we were doing, you know. So in other words, I always equate out what we do with music. Musicians get together and jam. Graffiti artists get together and do a piece.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing. So I can go to a studio and create a tape and give it to friends, and you know, it goes out there. So the same thing with T-shirts. You know, we could do T-shirts. And just give it out to friends, and you'll be doing a video someone's wearing one of my T-shirts, like, oh, cool, you know. But it wasn't a glamorous thing. It was just an extension of what we were doing. The way it's happened now, a lot of artists. See, we were all self-taught. We weren't, you know, none of us really went to colleges. Or to universities to advance what we're doing. Bless you. So a lot of the kids nowadays, they come out of schools with degrees in finance or degrees in art, you know, in art history or whatever. So there's already a twist to it where if I do this, there's a way of elevating myself. We weren't doing that. We were just doing our thing. So, you know, there's already an agenda, you know, to bring it to the masses, which is what we weren't doing. We were just doing our thing. So it's different. It's different. It's highly intellectualized, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's cool that the big brands are coming to us and say, hey, we want to do something with you guys, because now it's right. You know, it's time for that to happen. I think it would have been better like 30 years ago because it was so raw that only a few designers, like Steven Spruce, when he did the stuff with Haring, you know, that early stuff, you know, set the stage for what's going on now. You know, I mean, back then we could paint our names on our legs, on lead jeans or the back of lead jackets.
Yeah.
So that was, you know, again, that was just our taking what we wear and interpreting it a little different. Today, it's a whole different thing. Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a bit like going back to the comparison you made, a bit like music. Like today, if someone became a music icon, what they would probably have to do is use all the platforms, social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, to put out their songs, their tunes, or whatever it may be for free to get people to notice them. And then once they get noticed, then you can start pushing for the mixtapes or the albums, and then you get signed. And with an artist like yourself, you know, you make your name on the streets, then you start venturing over to the clothing, still not trying to make really money out of it, but just trying to get noticed. And then over time, then the opportunities come. And it goes back to the fundamentals in life. If you want to become a success, you need to give value first. You need to give a lot of hard work, sweat equity. there's no guarantees you're going to be a success, but if you keep on pushing at it and you're dedicated to it, you can become a success. So my question to you then, Crash, is when was the point, or around about the years, where you started thinking, right, I can start monetizing this and really, you know, making it a career or a living?
Oh man, you know, I think I'm still, like, you know, not there yet. And the reason why I say that is because with everything that we've done in the last 40 years, there's still that, you know, that wall that we go up against, because there's, you know, we've defied the authority, and we've defied all the experts, thinking that we were just going to just disappear in the mid 80s. Well, sorry, we're still here. So we still get that. You know, we're still like, oh, well, no. And you know what they'll do also? Let's say if you're Louis Vuitton and you come to me and you want to do something, and we talk about it, you know, we'll go back and forth for a while. And then they'll turn around and say, okay, you know what? We'll think about it. And then they'll go hire someone from inside to recreate what we do. And that happens a lot.
Yeah.
So when that comes out, you know, I have the right to, like, listen, I gave you the ideas, I gave you all this and that, so now you owe me. If not, then we go to court.
Yeah.
Because that has happened. That has happened with many of us, where you know, where conversation, and then they go in, you know, we have the conversation, then they'll decide to bring someone that works in the office that can replicate what we do. And they'll do it like, but wait a minute, we just had this conversation. So now you're doing this? Okay, so then now we're going to take it, you know, like we did in the street. Like, now I'm going to rap for your stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So it happens, you know, it happens a lot. But for me, I guess like 1984 was when it started, you know, like occurring that I can actually make a living out of doing this. Because most of us, we, you know, like myself, Dave Futura, Don DiBernozzi, all of us, we were painting, right, initially, right, from 1980 on. And then about 1980, I want to say like 85, 86, the economy started really slowing down. And a lot of us had to get jobs to help support what we were doing. So all of us were working. You know, we were all out there, but we never gave up painting. So we all, you know, we all did what everybody else does. You know, you get a second job and you do it, but you never give up. And I want to say about 1994, things started clicking. And I guess, you know, because we all really worked hard and never gave up, it started becoming more of, oh, these guys are serious, this is for real. And we never doubted ourselves, people doubted us. And they started realizing that this is for real, this is what's happening. And the fruits of it is what's happening today.
Yeah. And have you had many collaborations and opportunities to work with some very big brands?
I have, but you know, it's a funny thing. I just don't want to work with everybody. I want to work with who I grew up knowing, and gives me the opportunity to do something that's a little different. You know, I mean, yeah, you want to do a hat? Okay, why? You know, my question is why? Oh, because it can go really well. Like, well, you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember, I still get a lot of flack about it. I turned down to do a video for Mariah Carey.
Oh, wow.
I was just in London, and I got home, and it was like a Sunday afternoon. I was really tired. I was eating something, and I get a phone call, and, you know, just disregarded it. I got another, and then I got a message. This is when we had answering machines. And finally, you know, I was like, okay, let me see what it is. And so I finally called the person, and it was in regards to having me do a backdrop for Mariah Carey. I'm like, the musician? Like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm not into it. Thanks. Like, no, you know. So then they thought I was playing hard to get for money. And then, you know, they called back, look, you know, we could pay you this. I was like, okay, understand something. I appreciate it, but I'm not a fan. So, okay. So to this day, my daughters are like, oh, you're crazy. But it's just that I'm not a big fan of hers. So why do it? Just to make some money and like, oh, I was on a video. It doesn't make, you know, doesn't interest me. Yeah,
you know, there's a lot to say about people who are authentic and stay true to their roots and stay true to their ethics and also their mindset, and I admire that. It's a bit like, again, why I was drawn towards the Richard Hambleton market, because again, never going to disrespect anybody, and I'm not a painter, so I've got no right for me to ever kind of give a slandering kind of view. But some people have said that, you know, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Keith Haring, they want to have incorporated with the art market, where some people may say they might have sold out, not my words, theirs. And Hambleton stayed true to his word. He didn't want to work with the big galleries. And in so many ways, that's why so many collectors love his work, because he's a true artist. And I'm getting that from you as well, Crash.
Yeah, let me tell you something. Richard was bigger than Keith Haring when they were out. Richard had this huge following. When he was out, I mean, he was working with a gallery called Sartoriala, and that was based out of Milan, but had two nice spaces in the city. And, you know, I would go to the opens with Days, and, you know, and we knew Richard. He was bigger than Keith. And Jean-Michel, you know, was not fully developed, you know, running yet. But Richard was like, he was legit. He was no joke. We all knew him. And, you know, when I see him at opening, like, what's up, Richard? And Richard was, you know, he had these big eyes. I said, hey, what's up, Crash? And we'll talk. But he was huge. I mean, when he was in his prime, he was New York. He was no joke.
Because the New York Times dubbed him as a godfather of street art, and obviously we refer to him as that, you know, when we're talking to collectors. But was he really like that? You know, did other street artists look at him and go, he really is, you know, the godfather of street art?
When the city was, you know, at its I want to say its most interesting in like 79, 80, 81, he had all these little, like, the city was not a friendly city, and he would have one of his shadow figures on a, you know, like he wouldn't just put it on a wall. He put it like on a wall, but toward a corner. So when you turn the corner, you see this thing, like, oh, you know. So it sort of like took your breath away a little. But that's, you know, that was the intent, you know, to like, hey, you know, and it's sort of like what we were doing. Instead of our name, he had the figure. So hey, I'm here, that type of thing. But he was iconic. I mean, he was really, you know, like out there. And then when he started doing the paint stuff, you know, him holding his jacket, we're like, the hell, you know, he's crazy. But that was now, you know, like coming out of the shadows. Yo, it's me, you know. And I thought it was great. I thought it was great.
And like your take on, you know, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Keith Haring, Hambleton, because there was an article in the the International Herald Tribune back in 1983, and it spoke about the surge and growing love of graffiti street art, or what they used to call as public art. And it said back then, if you were to buy a Jean-Michel Basquiat, you would pay $10,000 roughly. If you were to acquire Haring or a Hambleton, you'd pay $15,000. And it's quoted in the paper. I've read it. So as you said, you know, Jean-Michel Basquiat wasn't as recognized as maybe the other two. The interesting thing is, out of the three, the only one they used to publicize with a piece of their art was Hambleton's. So, I mean, they had all different styles quite clearly. I would say even Haring's was a bit more like pop art in some respects. You know, how different were they as individuals? And, you know, obviously you got Jean-Michel Basquiat and also Keith Haring. They died, you know, prematurely, but their market has gone through the roof as far as finances are concerned. You know, how do you think that's going to, you know, shape Hambleton's market as well? So I know there's a few questions there.
Wow. Okay. All three of them were really different. Keith was very friendly. You know, he's one of these guys that you go to the studio and he spends time with you, and, you know, whatever. And I used to go to the studio from time to time. But I never just popped in. I would call him, hey, are you around? And, you know, we'll talk, whatever. He was very, very open. He was very, very kind. Jean-Michel, everyone knew him. He was very moody. And if, you know, it depended on the mood he was in. You know, like one time, there was a bunch of us, myself, A1, a bunch of us were walking. I forgot what club it was, and we ran into Jean-Michel, and he was going to the same club. So he paid for us, you know, all together. I'm like, oh, wow, cool, thank you. That type of thing. But then there were moments where, like, you walk by, you know, you walk by Jean-Michel, he would just like not recognize you or not want to recognize you. You know, so I'm like, okay, whatever. Richard was very shy. Richard was a really shy guy. You know, he was very smart. At the very beginning of him making some money, he bought real estate. He bought buildings. Actually, Days lived in one of his buildings. So Richard was very smart, but he was very shy, you know, very quiet. So they were all very, very different. I think the one that really had a rough time in the beginning was John Michelle. John Michelle was homeless for a while. Keith came from Kutztown, PA, but you know they all settled, you know, into the thing. They're all very different. Now regarding 1983, the prices. The thing with John Michelle, he was working with Amina Noze, and she was putting up, she was putting him up and helped support him. So I guess those early years, he was just working, trying to get things through. Keith, when he came into New York, he was going to I forgot the name of the school. Anyway, he was a club kid. He was going to clubs, and he met Kenny Sharp, and there was a cemetery going there. So things were happening. I met Richard, I just met him, like at openings or whatever. So I didn't really get to know him on a personal basis like with Keith. But when I saw his stuff, I was like, oh wow. I mean, there was so much energy. And then Keith in the beginning wasn't doing the six figures yet. He was doing a lot of collages with newspapers where he would take headlines and make them into like sort of like a pre-Jenny Holzer type of thing, or Barbara Kruger, where they'll take words. So he was doing that, back then. And then he started doing the characters, his little characters, and they started developing. But I remember the one that was really just stood out was Richard. He had it figured out. And then, like you see a lot of the guys from the 90s doing stuff on ads. Richard was doing that. He was doing paintings on Marlboro signs and other things. So he was already, he saw that. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. He saw that in advance. Yeah, but it makes sense. That makes sense in terms of the pricing back then because he was already doing shows and he was doing stuff in Italy. So
yeah, I know the market originally wasn't started for anything else, but for artists to become creative, to become known, let's say locally, and then maybe nationally, and then hopefully when they blow up internationally. But it was all about expressing yourself in a creative way and basically putting your mark on the world via your painting. But then obviously a secondary thing that happens with any of these things is the financial side of it, which is, the trading, the investment, the blue chip masterworks, that can go into auction or museums or big galleries and stuff. And going back to those three, obviously when they died, sometimes the best career move an artist can make is when they pass away because supply and demand, which is the brutal truth of it all, So, I mean, the one to look at is in 2017, Jean-Michel Basquiat went for $110.5 million. It's completely publicized. I mean, that same piece as well, back in 1984, was sold in auction for $19,000. And if I were to turn around to anybody, anyone that I know and say, right, buy something at less than $20,000, because in 30 odd years, you're going to sell it for $110.5 million. They'll say, Steve, what are you smoking? You're absolutely off your head. But it happened.
Hold up. Before you continue, I'll tell you this funny story. I was in an elevator going to Leo Castelli, right? Because there was either David Sally, I forgot what it was. I'm in the elevator, and there's Leo Castelli talking to this gentleman. And I forgot who I was with, but true to word. So the guy tells him, why should I pay, if I'm not mistaken, he said, why should I pay $6 million for Liechtenstein when right now the market's so soft and I can get it for $2 million? And he said, Leo Castelli said this. He said, because it's worth $6 million. The guy said, how do you figure? He goes, you paid $6 million for that painting? He goes, yeah. So it's worth $6 million. I don't care if it goes down to $1 million. It's worth $6 million. So if the market's up, it's still worth $6 million. That was the conversation that turned my head, because it's true. If the piece that you buy is under $20,000, it's worth $20,000. Even if something happens and the whole art system dies and everything's selling for $1, it's worth $20. Why? Because you paid the $20, so it's worth $20. So if you're gonna buy something for $20, you know for a fact it's gonna be worth double tomorrow morning. Why? Because you can just say it's worth $40,000. Why? Because that's what I say. So it's what a person speaks, and the auction houses, we already know how auction houses work. And with the guys, early to mid 80s, there were 3 or 4 really big dealers that were helping prop up the market. Bruno Bishop Berger was one of them. Thomas Amon was another one. Castelli was another one. Whether it was Mary Boone or whoever else, but there were 4 or 5 that were propping it up and keeping it up. And it worked, because you could sell a Julian Schnabel for 100, but, knowing full well that tomorrow morning it'll be worth 200. Why? Because I said so, and watch what's going to happen, and it's going to happen. And that's how the game was played. And it changed a little bit when auction houses in China own their own galleries, and the own galleries will turn around tomorrow morning, put the piece up at auction, and I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that a little, sticky? But no, we believe in this, and that's how it went.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, there's so many different sort of views to take on the art market. At the end of the day, it's an unregulated market, and that has its ups and it has its downs. Obviously, in a regulated market, there is ups to it, and there's also downs as well. So this is no different. Right. But yeah, going last sort of point on the whole Hambleton thing, though. So you had Haring died, young, I think 33 years of age, I think, from memory, and Jean-Michel Basquiat was 27, I think, or 28. And their market boomed. Hambleton only died in 2017, which is actually a bit of a weird year for him to die, because obviously his piece was taken into the MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, a part of the permanent collection, which is a massive deal in my opinion, huge. And then also he had the Shadow Man documentary shown at the Tribeca Film Festival, and it won an award. And then later on in that year, he died. It was almost like he was waiting for those things to happen, then he died, which is crazy, Now he's died, would you take a view that the only way for his market is up, or what do you as an artist, what do you need to see? What sort of things need to happen in order for the market to rise?
For his market, wow. Or for any market. Yeah,
I mean, generally speaking, supply and demand is a factor. But then, are there other things that stimulate the market? I mean, would you take a view that his market's going to go up regardless because he's one of the greats, or do you think there needs to be?
I think he's a great artist. So, regarding that's a no-brainer. It's such a weird thing, because you can still buy. I'll give an example. You can still buy a work of art on paper by an abstract expressionist for like $15,000, but yet a Basquiat drawing you can't get for under $150,000. And the abstract expressionist is one of the 12 that started the movement, and here's Jean-Michel. And I'm not blasting Jean-Michel. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just comparing, and it's wild, because okay, another thing. You can buy a beautiful Keith Haring ink on paper for $25K, but you could turn around and buy, I don't know, whoever, a drawing on paper for $75,000. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But, publicists are great. When you got them, they can do some nice things. So, it's Richard, his market is going to boom. I think with Richard's market is going to go up slowly. And when it goes up slowly, that's a confidence booster because that means that it's really recognized as what I call blue chip. And it's just going to keep going. All we need is for someone to dump some Basquiat's on the market and there's not enough money to purchase them, his market's going to come down. Like you said, supply and demand. That triggers everything. That's just the way it is. But Hamilton, he doesn't have as many works as Haring. I think he's undervalued. I think he's underappreciated. So all these things are seeds for a really good market. It's just going to happen. And like Ramelzi's market is Ramelzi's market is gonna do really well, and so is Martin Wong's. His market is starting to go up also. So I believe in slow and steady, going up slow and steady, because if there's something that the market collapses, those pieces are not going to drop. They're going to stay there. Something that's going for $100 million, it'll drop down to 75. Like you say, there's 75 million. Wait, $25 million is a lot of money.
Huge.
So I don't care how you look at it. That's a lot of money. So I think his market is right. I want to say in the next 2-3 years, easily, he should get something, close to $1 million. I mean, I'm not sure what his market is at now for a nice big piece, but I mean, $1 million shouldn't look too far away in the distance.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, 2010 at the Amphar Film Festival, when 2 pieces were donated into that charity, I think they went for close to $1 million as a pair. I think 940 and 960,000. Now, obviously, it was a charity, so people a lot more forthcoming with their bids because it's going to a good cause.
So write-off,
yeah. But then, if you look at 2019 in Phillips, a piece, one of his landscapes, fun enough, 1985 went for $550,000. So that set the benchmark. But in the private domain, I've been aware of a rodeo Marlboro man, because as we well know, privately to publicly, the private market always appreciates far quicker than the public market.
Much higher.
There's already pieces going for close to $1 million. So I think that in the Phillips, Christie, Sotheby's, Bottoms, all the big auction houses, I think in the next 12, 18 months, especially with what's going on this year with the roadmap of the Richard Hamilton archive and just street art across the board, I think there's going to be a $2, $3, $4 million auction for him, without a doubt. Look, going back to you actually though here, Crash, because this interview isn't just about other artists. This is really about you as well. First of all, I mean, we're kind of into the conversation. I really am taken to you quite a lot because one, you told me you're a boxer and I resonate with that. Two, you're a really good artist, and I know you've been linked with some of the greats. But the way you talk just about like the appreciation of an artist market and the investment side, some artists would shy away from that conversation because some artists are just so fixed on the creativity, and it's not that they're in denial of the appreciation, but they might see it as the galleries or the art dealers kind of place to say about the appreciation, the investment side of it. So I wanted to thank you for being open about that.
Well, thanks. I mean, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to take care of you. Okay, galleries. A lot of artists get this wrong, but galleries work for the artist. You don't work for the gallery. The gallery doesn't make a penny unless they're able to sell a piece of yours. Yeah. So, I work with different dealers in the past, and the ones that I still work with are the ones that understand that I want to do what I want to do, and this is what I want to do. Because that's what an artist does. An artist, a painter is born to paint. A sculptor is born to sculpt. A musician is born to make music. So this is your calling, and you need to take care of yourself. And you got a family and kids. You got to take care of yourself. Now, if you want to play like the prima donna role and have people around you, and and that whole weird scenario, you're not going to last long simply because at the end of the day they're going to steal from you. You know, I'm very aware of how the art world works. I'm very aware of it, and I don't pay any mind to it. I'm not a fan of auction houses because I feel that the true artists who really should benefit. Well, you know, let's go back. Auction houses were created so that when someone dies, the family can take the possession and sell it, so that they can, you know, they can pay the bills. It wasn't about paintings. It was just, you know, like plates and fur coats and jewelry, you know, whatever your mask, you sell it, and it helps, you know, to have the kids and the grandkids go to college. You know, that's what it was. It's taken off into a whole different direction where now the auction houses, this is it, art, and there are so many auction houses that are popping up like in France. People are just renting halls, have art and sell it. You know, they're doing it as a business. You know, it's changed a lot. I'm true to the sense that, you know, what is there to hide? You know, if I tell you right now, like I think of the video in California when there was when you know the protests are happening in LA, they smashed all these windows and walked into this gallery, and all they did was steal was cost pieces. You know, they were walking out with pieces that were worth $50,000 or $100,000. Why? Because they know what it's worth, and these are street kids. Yeah. You know, they went with an agenda. They took these pieces, and I'm like, but other pieces were just, they fit on the wall. They were not being touched. I'm like, that's you know, that's the reality. So if you want to be true about this, then then know your self-worth and know that this is, you know, this is what it is. You know, I'll go to an opening and I'll see Cause. I say, hey, what's up, man? And I say, oh, yo, you know what? In my pocket, I just happen to have something. Can you sign it for me? Now, we know each other forever. So he knows if he signs something for me, it's going to go on my shelf. I'll give it to my kids, and that's it. But the people like, tomorrow morning, it shows up on eBay. I want $20,000. That's what it is. Why? Because that's what's going on now. So for someone to tell me, you're not being true, like, are you crazy? I'm telling you the truth. You know, you had mentioned the whole thing about us being brands. I want to say 15 years ago, I had a dinner with John Mayer, the musician.
Yes.
The guitar player.
Yeah. He's got a wicked tune called "Free Falling." Is a tune that he does on the guitar. Free falling. Yeah. Okay, yeah. It's probably not the best rendition of it, but blinding tune. Yeah.
So we're having dinner. We did some work together, so I'm having dinner with him, and he's telling me that, you know, that in the future we're all gonna be brands. I'm like, and I'm eating. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, we're all brands. You are who you are. I am who I am, and we have to look out for our branding, because if we do a wrong turn, our brands are not going to be worth anything. So I told him, so in other words, I'm a store, and you're coming to me to buy a product. He goes, yeah. I'm like, that's absurd. This was 15 years ago. And when you mentioned that, it triggered that memory. I'm like, he was so right, because, you know, we get up in the morning and we go to bed, but throughout the day, we're doing something to either put out into the world or whatever it is, you know. Like, you do what you do and your business, but you're putting it out there. So you're branding yourself, and it's, you know, and it's like, that's so weird. But true to form, in today's art market, the galleries that are out there are not the way where they represent the artists and all that. No, the artists now, most artists have now someone that represents them, like a private deal or whatever, and they go to the gallery and they work out the details. That was never. So I'm like, nah, you know what? I just go to the gallery. You want to do a show with me? Cool. This is what it is. And we agree, shake hands, we're good. And I've never had an issue.
That's good, man. That's good.
Weird.
Talking about Cause, I mean, I can see some of your beautiful paintings in the background, but the one over your own right-hand shoulder, the other one, I mean, what?
Miss?
Is that, no, I was going to say your right shoulder. So
James Rizzi. Yeah, James Rizzi.
Oh, right, because I thought that was one of yours at first, because I've seen some of the pieces that we've even had here, and the lines and stuff. And I hope you take this as a compliment, but I see definitely some cause kind of resemblance in there. Maybe a bit of Futura and stuff. Is there a reason why, let's say, Ramosi, Futura, bit of cause, even Cope, when I spoke to him, there are quite a lot of connections between you guys, and obviously Days as well. There feels like there's a common, don't know, there's something in the style that I can tell is, you know, you guys.
Well, I think the first connection is lettering. You know, we all came from, you know, doing graffiti. So the lettering structure is always, is always the thing. Futura was the one that sort of broke ground and made us aware that we can go abstract. You know, you can take what you did and make it what you want. It doesn't have to be pop art-ish or, you know, surrealist, or, you know, it could, you know, graffiti is just a way of expressing. We just have to use our names. You know, that's our form of expression, was doing our names and doing it in a certain way. So Futura made it, you know, he broke that glass ceiling. You know, you can make it work, you know, the way you want to.
Yeah.
You know, it's just happened that way. He didn't plan it. Just, you know, that's the way. And Futura has always been a very graphic individual. I have early drawings of his. They're very graphic, but there's a sensibility of abstraction. You know, I love abstract art. I love the abstract expression. I think that graffiti and abstract expressionism go hand in hand because it was of the moment. You know, everything was like of the moment, and that's what we did. We did, you know, we might have sketches of what we're gonna do, but when you're painting, you'll put it in your pocket and you just go. It's the same principle. I think what is the anchor in all of our stuff is color and structure. That's, you know, you know what? It's very similar to like, I guess, futurism. You know, everything moves.
Yeah.
I mean, this painting has a sense of movement, so does this, and everything has a sense of movement, and it's very lyrical. So all of it is, you know, go back to graffiti. I mean, it goes back to that. We all came from that, and it all has Jean Michel pieces also. There's, you know, that sense of movement, and it all comes from that.
Yeah, the one word that you said there, again, I'm not an artist, but I feel like I resonated with one word you said there, which was structure. And there is a lot of structure throughout all of your works, you and the others that you referenced. And going back to someone like Hambleton, of course there has to be structure, but I don't know, with some of the Lurking Shadow Men, it was a bit more chaotic. It was a bit more freehand. Yours feels like, you know, it's a lot more, you know, thought out sometimes. And I think it's quite cool to look at the difference. So, look, going back to someone like Futura, who's, you know, he's, you know, come in. I don't want to use the word commercialized because that again sounds like he's, you know, maybe just going after the money. But I think that's a natural progress into doing collaborations and stuff. I bought a pair of Converse that he done a collaboration with a few years ago from Colette, which was a Paris store, which is now no longer there.
I know Colette.
Mate, like I had to get the timing right of that, because if I didn't get it right, I wouldn't have got the pair of trainers, you know. And they're not even expensive, but they literally sold out within, you know, minutes. And I've got them next door in the studio. Very, very cool. I think I've worn them like 5 times in, like, you know, a few years. But that kind of stuff allows an artist to get his work to different demographics, or to people
That's the idea. That's the idea.
Yeah, that can't afford a $20, $30, $40, $50,000 canvas, but what they can afford is a $150, $200 pair of sneakers. But if they
Keith Haring started that.
Right.
He had the foresight of knowing that you know, people that love his work, you know, like club kids and all that, they can't afford a $5,000, you know, going back then, a $5,000 painting, $1,500, you know, work on paper. So when he opened up the pop shop, he started doing small editions 4 prints for $250,
Mm.
and only an addition of 100. And he started doing it with the idea that people can afford, people that really like his stuff can afford it. And I mean, to this day, I believe in that. Yeah, I could have a painting up in the gallery for 30,000, but it's important that I'll give you an example. Look, someone sent me a self-addressed envelope. And this goes into this. A kid wants to know if I could sign. I designed a garbage pail kid card, So he sent me the card if I could sign it, and then he put a little piece of paper and you could do a little drawing. So I did a little drawing, and it's for a kid. And I sent him. And it goes back to Keith Haring with that idea that you should be able to get something that you like, I believe that if you see a painting and you like it, that's why you buy it. Then, if you really like it, you put the deposit on, then you go and make do your homework and find the references, to the artist and find out, whatever. And then you go out, then, okay, I'm buying the piece. But you have to live with it. So it's going to live in your house for 30 years. You better like the damn thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're buying the piece, you're wrapping it up and putting it in storage, why? Why? Someone else could have bought it and they could have hung it in their home. So, if you want to buy it for that, okay, cool. But you should like the piece first. And then, like, oh, I love this. Let me deposit. And then you go on, because now you can find out everything on any artist online. And print them out, you read about it, wow. And then you wind up buying two, I mean, whatever moves you. But Keith's idea was that people, if they really like it, should be able to, they should be able to have it. So he started doing T-shirts and shorts. And if I would go see him, he'll give me like a T-shirt, Like, well, thanks, I'll give it to one of my kids. So, like, Futura, to work with so many, it gives people the opportunity to get something, to afford it, and it's a cool thing. It's a great thing. I mean, Cause does this, especially if you're a kid. I'll go, hey, what's up? And we'll hang out. Then he starts giving me, I didn't come to get stuff. I mean, he and I have had an argument. Like, I come to see you. I see what you're doing. We could talk. I've known you for 30 years. We're all good. But no, I really want to give it to your daughters. I'm like, so I come out with a shopping bag, But that's the same thing, It's a love thing. It's a you want to share. You want to give back in some form or another. And I think it's a good thing. I don't see anything bad with working with brands and doing things that people can have access to.
Yeah, it does twofold almost. It actually, in my mind, escalates the value or the desire for people to acquire your original work, let's say the masterpieces, etc. But then at the same time, it gives back. You're giving back to a community that cannot afford or are not ready to go into the originals market. So I think it's such a great thing. And again, you're commercializing your own brand by doing it, and that holds a value. And as a business person, just putting on a business hat for a second rather than an artist hat, that's quite an important thing, because when you're unfortunately cross over to the other side and your family take on your estate, it needs to be set up in a way where they can benefit from it, and I think that's a healthy mindset to have, later on in life. But you got many years before that happens there, John. So
thank you.
But so Crash, a question that you might get asked all the time, but I don't know the answer to it. Why are you called Crash?
Oh wow. Okay, it was it's a computer term, obviously. I was going to a high school in the city that specialized in business careers, called Murray Bertram, and myself. Some of the guys from A Tribe Called Quest went there. John Leguizamo, the actor, went there. Sergio George, the music producer. But it was a school for business careers. And you're 13 years old. You don't know what you're going to do. So I decided to go into computer programming. That was going to be my 4 years of high school.
Okay.
And the first year, they were showing us how to what they call OCL, which is to start up a computer in the morning to get the work done. And back then, a computer was not the size of my laptop. A computer was the size of an entire room. So if you look at these old movies from the 60s, you see like these big IBM things, that's how the computers were.
Okay.
And we all worked on key punch cards. You didn't type in and, no, everything was on key punch cards. So one morning, I was being taught how to, turn on the computer. So the following morning, I go to turn on the computer, and I put in they had a data disk that you had to insert, just, to get the computer moving. And I put it in wrong, and it crashed. And, kids in high school are relentless, so they started calling it CRASH, and that's how I got my name.
That's really, really cool. Really
but
cool.
The last on me.
For sure. So, goals for you in the next 5, 10, 15 years, CRASH? What do you want to achieve? Who do you want to work with? And is there any big brands that you want to work with? What's your vision for the future?
Well, my main concern, to stay healthy, to keep working. I mean, I'm approaching a number which I never thought I would reach, but I'm going to be 60 this year. So I'm hoping that I can still maneuver and work quietly and just do what I got to do. Regarding brands, I'm more interested in a brand that's that has concerns beyond being in the store. Like, in other words, if I work with a brand and they're willing to put $1 million into helping fund to get fresh water to a town in South America or Africa, that can help people along the line, things like that. You get to a point where when you give back, you want to give back. When you work with a big company, you can give back in a larger way. So why not? Why not? If I'm going to work with someone, like, if you're going to work with me, then you have to supply 1,000 school bags with books and pencils to underprivileged, towns, and maybe like in East LA. You know what I'm saying? Like things like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, I'm not really particular. I mean, I would love to do something maybe with like Ducati, or with Ferrari. Those are dream companies to work with. But I'm not particular. If it works, it works.
Yeah. And your view on the contemporary street art sector, over the next few years, how do you think it's going to unfold? There's a reason why I'm saying this, is because we do, again, art dealing predominantly for Hambleton, with a lot of collectors, investors, people that bought from us 2014, 15 have sold on, and they've made a good, decent profit. And if they compare it to their other areas of investments, like your bonds, like your ISAs, like your bank-based investments, it's far outstripped what they've done. City Private Bank, which is part of Citigroup, released a report between the years of 1985 to 2020. And what they found is contemporary street art has made their, let's say, their very, very wealthy clients roughly 11.5% each and every single year for 35 years, which is amazing. I'm definitely seeing, let's say, not art lovers or sophisticated art collectors, not these people are coming into the art sector for the very first time to stockpile work, maybe because they've slightly, enjoyed it, but more importantly, just to preserve their money, because coronavirus has made things very unpredictable. So are you finding people are coming to you now more than ever, like people that you would never, ever consider as an art collector, but they're buying your work or work from affiliates because they see the upside to it?
Recently, there has been an uptick in people asking for works from the 80s, which is what they consider the gold era. Yeah. It's wild. And the funny thing is, I've been actively trying to buy stuff from the 80s back at auction. And the simple reason being is because when you're back at the 80s and you're painting stuff, you're not thinking about anything but just trying to pay your rent.
Yeah.
So some early pieces have come up, which I've gotten, which I'm very happy about. I paid a little bit, but I want to bring some stuff back into my life that I let go, that I really love. One, and two, the way things are going, the early work, proof is, with the market, early works always are much more expensive than the most recent work. But you have to do what you have to do. It's funny. It's just whether the pandemic was the linchpin, for what's going on. It was going to happen anyway. It was going to happen anyway because how many collectors are there that you can continue to draw from? It's like a well. At one point, the well's going to run dry. So you have these mega companies that are forming, and I did work with two capital management companies that grown in the last 5 years, and they've grown incredibly. And they've hired me to do some murals for them, and which never ever would have happened. So it's happening. It's happening, and they're even hiring curators into the company to help facilitate to run these things. But you know what? Someone like Saatchi and Saatchi set that tone years before.
Yeah.
So
we done
and it's funny that you mentioned Citibank, because they own pieces of mine that they bought in the 80s.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's saying something. Funny enough, you mentioned Saatchi and Saatchi. We done one of the only shows. We only done 2 shows last year, but one of them was at the Saatchi Gallery in Chelsea, London. And man, it was really good for the brand, really good for Hambleton, really good for just the buzz of it all. It was fantastic. All right. Well, I kind of agree with what you're. Sorry, I definitely agree with what you're saying there, because a lot of people do want artists from the 80s, because that's when the whole kind of genre was born, and many people, many of the great artists paved the way for other artists back then. Okay, I sort of asked it, but the brands that you've worked with before in the past, who have they been? Which are they any any that we recognise? Yeah,
Toomey Luggage.
Right.
I did a bunch of I didn't do a bunch. I did a couple of series of guitar Fender music. Oh wow, Levi's. Oh man. There's been a few of them. Sabella, women. They had these great bags. So I designed some stuff with Sabella, and it was a nice little company. And then when they showed up on Oprah Winfrey's show, she goes, "You gotta get these bags." It exploded, and that was the end of that.
Mm-hmm.
So different companies. A lot of them. Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm going to round us off this podcast just with a couple more things. So, me and my business partner Joe, we're going to, as soon as the borders are allowing us to fly again and come over, we're going to be coming over to New York to enhance our network. Want to do some more content, so I'd love to meet up with you in person. I have to say, Crash, and I'm not just saying it because you're on this call, but I have absolutely enjoyed my time speaking to you, and you're a real gentleman, real genuine kind of guy, and really, really pleased I've connected with you, and no doubt, hopefully, we can make something work together in regards to working, from a commercial point of view.
Awesome.
My wish list, I'm just throwing it out there to you just in case you can help me. I would love to interview the Futuras, the Causes, Kenny Shaft, people like that. So I'm throwing it out there just to see if something can happen. Maybe they can listen to this.
I can send a little message to them, yeah.
Amazing. Where can people find you, Crash, if you want them to follow you?
Oh, wow. On Instagram, it's funny. Instagram, I use it as sort of as a diary. So, I'll put different things, but most of the time, I'll do something that's recent there. But yeah, Crash One at Instagram, on my website, crashone.com.
Nice. Cool.
I guess.
All right, lovely. Here's the last question. So my podcast is called the Stephen Sully Study, and I like to study, very, very successful people. And this particular podcast crosses over between my own podcast as well as Woodbury House's. Being the founder, this is art as well as business, as well as mindset, etc. Now, when I first got into business for myself as a young pup, I came up with a bit of a motto, which goes like this: be happy, never content. If I were to ask you, Crash, what be happy, never content means to you, what's your interpretation of that?
A fireplace.
A fireplace.
Let me explain to you why. I had a conversation years ago with a friend of mine, and he asked me, what would make you happy? Not happy. What would you consider being successful? And I said, a fireplace. And he said, why? I said, growing up in the projects in the South Bronx, you know, you grow up, you know, housing is housing. You grow up with all these people and all this craziness. And I would watch TV, you know, like, it's funny, growing up in the projects, you never think about people owning homes, right? A house. You know, and then when I went to a friend's house when I was a kid, and they had a house with a backyard, I'm like, oh, wow, this is real. And then growing up, I saw, you know, like old movies. I'm a fan of old movies, houses with like fireplaces. And, you know, that you could sit in front of a fireplace, have a fire. And like, to me, that was like the best thing you could have. That you could come home after a long day, you know, pull up a chair, light a fire, and just sit there just quietly, you know, with a drink and just chill out and just like your mind. That to me was like heaven. So to me, owning a fireplace would be my happiness, my I have arrived type of thing.
Right. So be happy. Yeah, be happy, never content. Your kind of analogy for it is the fireplace. Yeah.
Fireplace, because you always have to light it.
Yeah.
You know, you always have to keep the fire going. It dies out. That's it. But you know, just the fact that you know you can light a fire and just be one. You know, just be quiet and everything just sheds away. You know, yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, man. Well, look, listen. Thank you for coming on. I'm gonna, like I said, be over in New York hopefully in the next coming months. I'm definitely going to connect with you, bro. I've got your number now. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your experience. I appreciate everything that you've shared today. This podcast is also going to go on YouTube, so it's going to be out in the next coming weeks. Please subscribe, everyone who's listening. Please refer it to friends, family. Please refer it to other artists. I think everyone's going to get something from this. Crash, John, be happy, never content. Thank you for your time again, and good luck, sir.
Much appreciated, man.
Take care. Bye now.
Take care.
Bye.